Hey, my name is Ricardo Stevon, and you're tuned into House the Houseless, Music in Action with Cole Williams.
The Black Panthers coined the phrase, power to the people, during the freedom movement. Today, right now, in this moment, we are all called to uplift those people that you don't make eye contact with and pass on the streets, the least of ours. We gotta dig deep, and we gotta dig deeper. We gotta scream, we gotta shout, we gotta bang on doors, and we gotta let them know to empower the people. We must give power to the people.
Yesterday is far away, my tomorrow's your today. Nothing's what it really seems to be. Walk the road less traveled, then you find yourself in trouble. Some people don't want some people to be free. Spending all our time on the other side. Dance 'cause the whole world's watching you. You are life's pop culture. If you don't, then they don't wanna. Hold up your head, give power to the truth. We give power to the people. We give.
Greetings, everyone. Hi, my name is Louis, and I love music. After 17 years in the music business, I found something that I love even more, and it's the people that make the music. and I'll tell you why. Not only are they continuously creating and spending their lives adding to our culture instead of taking away from it, but they're going further. They're going beyond because they see the people and they see what needs to be done, and they're taking action and working to make life on this planet better. And for that, I have nothing but respect, and that is why we are here. We're a record label, and we could spend our time selling you records, which we do. Please buy them. But we also want to bring you culturally important news and stories, and that's what today's show is all about. I want to point out that why I'm saying this, and that is we all value music and the contributions that musicians make, and we should definitely find time and money to help artists do what they do, as well as all the people that are helping those on the planet that are less fortunate. With that, I will turn the microphone over to rope-a-dope publicist and expert, Mr. Fabian Brown. Mr. Brown, welcome.
Louis, thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody. Really excited to be here again, just to be in a room surrounded by just some incredible people. You know, and I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce Miss Cole Williams. You know, in the heart of the vibrant and resilient city of New Orleans, one artist stands out at the forefront of a powerful movement, using her music as a catalyst for change and for hope. Cole Williams is, you know, a multi-talented musician, a songwriter, a producer, a humanitarian, is not only known for her soulful melodies, but also known for her unwavering commitment to defending the rights of the unhoused individuals in her community. Hailing from Brooklyn, New York, Cole has found her purpose in the vibrant streets and diverse culture of New Orleans. She wears many hats, serving as a recording artist, multi-instrumentalist, WWOZ radio show host, and a relentless advocate for human rights. What sets Cole apart, in my opinion, is her remarkable ability to blend her artistic prowess with her deep-rooted passion for social justice. In these recent years, New Orleans has witnessed the birth of a movement, one that demands change, compassion, and a brighter future for those facing homelessness. Cole Williams has emerged as a powerful voice within this movement, using her music to ignite hearts and inspire action. In fact, her latest album, Give Power to the People, channels the spirit of legendary artist Gil Scott-Heron, crafting anthems, and resonates with the everyday experience and hopes of Black people worldwide. Shameless plug, please go support her. Visit her on her Bandcamp page, colewilliams.bandcamp.com. But Cole's impact extends far beyond the recording studio. She's at the forefront of the grassroots effort, working alongside with the Greater New Orleans Citizens Relief Team to renovate blighted houses owned by the city, with unhoused individuals by her side. This endeavor calls upon the city government and skilled individuals and the houseless to join forces together and create a tangible change. In an era where art meets activism, as Louis alluded to earlier, Cole Williams is a true luminary. Her passion for uplifting humanity shines bright through her music and her dedication to building a more equitable world. As we delve into her journey and the potent intersections of music, advocacy, and community, we're privileged to explore the artistry and activism of what is called Miss Cole Williams. Cole, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful after that great introduction. Can I take you on the road with me?
Checks in the mail. Yes.
Check is always in the mail. You know, Fabian, thank you so much. Louis, thank you. And just Rope-a-Dope as a record label, but also what Rope-a-Dope represents. It is such a pleasure to be around like-minded individuals working as a collective, because this is what my work with the community of New Orleans, but also my work specifically with the Houseless is about. It's about taking everybody's best, their skills, their genius, their resources, their talents, and putting it in this pot where we can all work together and we can just bring out the best in one another. And so we're starting at the bottom with the Houseless community. In the spirit of what's happening now and real time things that are happening in New Orleans, I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed about what's happening with the Greater New Orleans Citizens Relief Team and our work. So in 2020, we started working with the unhoused to renovate city-owned blighted properties with them while teaching them a marketable skill. So while they're moving into this home, we're tackling other issues, which are, what is their skill level? We're tackling education. We've been doing this for the last 3 years, expanding into grocery distribution over Hurricane Ida, a year and a half. Well, most recently, about a week ago, members of the gentleman, Ben Blanc from Nora, that stopped by, which was, I think, one of the worst conversations I've had with someone. He pretty much, he said, and I quote, "I don't care about those people. We want to push homes. We want to push houses." So I just got off the phone that day feeling so let down. I felt like we were in this fight by ourselves. I thought, how can somebody say I don't care about people? So I'm coming here to start off this show, just let everybody know that something that we can all do all over the world is, number one, we can acknowledge everyone that's not doing well, everybody that's living on the street. Let's acknowledge them, see what they need, talk to them, work with an organization if that's more comfortable for you, but get active. And number two is to help us directly. We would love people to go to our Instagram page, to our website, find out a little bit about what we're doing and get involved, share it with your friends. The more that people are talking, the more that people are reading about it, or the more that people are going to understand like why it's so important for us to take care of the bottom, because the same way that things trickle down, they also trickle up, and poverty is absolutely trickling up right now. So on that note, the reason why I am working with the unhoused, one of the reasons is because of my mentor, the late Curtis Muhammad, a 60-year civil rights veteran. And when I first met Curtis told me to go to the people most in need. So I said, well, they're the houseless. So he said, go to them, speak to them, like have a conversation, get to know them. And I was really just out of my league. I didn't know what I was supposed to say, but I just went, met somebody, forget the gentleman's name. And he was so friendly to work with that I actually became more comfortable speaking with people that I wasn't always comfortable with. There was less of a separation, and it was more about the human being. And one day I went under the bridge about 5 a.m. To do some recruiting, which means organizing, talking to people about what they need regarding housing. And I met a gentleman named Javier. And I said, Javier, how can we talk to more people like under the bridge? Like how are they doing with housing? Are they interested? We want to be able to reach them more. He said, well, you need to come to meet Sarah Parks at Grace at the Green Light, and you need to go to meet her at about 5:30 a.m. Before they start receiving breakfast, so you can actually speak to people online, and then you can hang out, and when Sarah gets a little break, you can speak to her. So the next day, 5:30 a.m., I was out there, and I did exactly what Javier said. Spoke to some people online. I waited for Sarah to get a break, and I met Sarah. And Sarah, you are the sweetest person that I ever met. I told her what I was doing. She didn't look at me like I was crazy. And she said, okay, sure, you can talk to, as long as they want to speak to you, you're welcome to speak to the gentleman or the woman that are out here. And what I really respect about Sarah, not only for listening to me and understanding like what I was attempting to do, is that Javier had formerly been unhoused and was currently housed. And she had Javier working with her. And in real time, she was doing something that I was looking to do. How do I work with the people that I want to serve? So Sarah is the executive director of Grace at the Green Light since 2015, originally from South Carolina. Sarah first felt called to work with the houseless population of New Orleans in 2003 after spending a summer volunteering with a local transitional housing program for homeless women and children. After receiving a bachelor's of social work from Winthrop University in 2006, Ms. Sarah Parks followed her call to move to New Orleans with the goal of serving those in need. In the past 16 years that she has lived in New Orleans, she served with a various of local service agencies, including those that serve houseless as well as at-risk adolescents. The call to serve local homeless population is one that Mrs. Parks is devoted to, and she is grateful as a server of Grace at the Green Light. And just to give you a little more transparency, Grace at the Green Light is a local organization, a 501c3 based in New Orleans, that serves the unhoused population by offering them choices, providing for their basic needs of water, food, clothing, and community in a loving manner that embraces the human spirit. Sarah?
Hi, Cole. You were right. You're going to make me cry. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to have some conversations. There's a lot going on in our city and our nation, I know, concerning the houseless. So just excited to be here to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. I gave my introduction personally about why I respect you and how we met. But can you just tell anyone that's watching, just what was that moment where you knew you were here to serve? Like that this was your purpose of serving the houseless?
Yeah. It really came that the first time I visited New Orleans and volunteered at this transitional housing program for homeless women and their children, and just seeing the families, the children, the women that had often been forgotten, whose voices had been diminished. I knew that I was, called to serve this city, to help raise those voices, not to be a voice for them, but to help lift them up, and just to help build community.
What does that mean to help lift their voices up and not to be a voice for them? Because what I've experienced personally, transitioning from being a volunteer that is telling people what they need to get better versus being an organizer that works with people and asks questions. Can you define what that means to serve with the people?
Sure. It's all about building community and having conversations. Like you shared a little bit about the story with Javier. Javier was one of the very first people I met when I started this position at Grace at the Green Light in 2015, and he was unhoused in that moment. And just walking alongside these individuals, walked alongside Javier, was able to help him get housing, and then continuing to be a part of that community, continuing to listen to those voices. So it's, once our folks get housed, they're still part of our community. We don't want to just house them and say, okay, let's move on to the next person. So that's really where Grace at the Green Light comes in, and community is such a big part. One of our, goals is to break down the barriers between the housed and the unhoused by building community. And so we have folks like Javier, and I've got, probably about 10 other guys who are either currently unhoused or formerly unhoused and now stably housed that come give back. They come volunteer with us. Every single day, we have guys that show up and ladies that show up. They want to be part of our community. So it's about lifting their voices. Like I said, not telling them the solutions. We don't have all the answers to the problems. They know it better than any of us. So it's about listening to them, making sure they're able to advocate for themselves. We recently have had some battles with City Council about food distribution to our local encampments. And instead of a bunch of us that work with the unhoused just going and telling what we think should happen, we invited our friends to come along. So it was their voices that were heard. We let them know what's going on. Hey, these are the current situations in our community. What do you think should happen? So it really is just about listening and building community.
I have so many questions. I'm getting chilly. Before I go further about what you're dealing with right now, can you share exactly what it is that you do every single day? I started when you were serving breakfast, but you've since expanded.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So no one day looks the same. We have a few different programs through Grace at the Green Light. The first one that started was our meals program. So we serve a full hot breakfast every morning, 365 days a year to our unhoused community. We partner with the local church, Living Witness Ministries in Central City, New Orleans, and use their space so our guests can come in, they can enjoy a full hot breakfast, they can sit down, they can watch the news, sit in the air conditioning, use the restrooms. And really it's like sitting at tables family style, building that community, not just, grabbing a plate and walking back off to your tent or your car or wherever, but building that community. So that is one of our main programs. Myself and we have one other full-time social worker on staff. So we are sitting down and talking to people every single day saying, hey, what further resources do you think you would like to work on? Whether that be housing, whether that be mental health care, medical treatment, all of those kinds of things. We have partner agencies that we're able to connect people to. We also have a going home program. So this started a few months after our organization started, just by us just talking to people saying, hey, what needs are out there that nobody else can help with? What are the gaps in services? And we found out that there are so many unhoused in New Orleans that are simply stranded. They have family members, they have friends that want them back home, that may live in another city, another state, but neither one has the resources to get them back home. So we target populations like those coming out of incarceration, those that are coming out of our hospital system, which is a huge thing in our area, those that have come to rehabilitation treatment here in New Orleans, and then they're just let out the front doors and they end up on the streets when they have family and they have loved ones to go back home to. So we have a caseworker that works with them, make sure there's a stable, safe home environment for them to go home to. Has to be more of a long-term thing, not just somebody that'll let them sleep for a night or two and then kick them out, but a supportive environment. So we work with those individuals, and then we'll purchase a bus ticket or a train ticket, send them home. And then we do 3 months of follow-up. So that's really critical for the success of our individuals in this program, is not just buying them a bus ticket and saying, hey, good luck with the rest of your life, but really following up, connecting with the family members that they're living with, seeing what needs they may have, seeing if they may need help applying for food stamps or Medicaid, all of those kinds of things once they get settled into their new environment. So we do 3 months of follow-up. Only 6% are back on the streets. And we actually just had a huge celebration last week. We sent our 3,000th person home over the past 9 years. So that was a huge deal. And the need continues to grow for that program. We've seen 100% increase in the past year for that program. We do a clothing closet too. So we have, and this was something else that came out of Hurricane Ida. We were boots on the ground during Ida. Most of the other organizations that work with the unhoused shut down, went away. We stayed open. We were able to maintain some relationships with World Central Kitchen that helped provide food to us, even though we were without power for 10 days. We were able to provide a full hot meal daily, and then we were like, there's no more resources. People need clothing. They need hygiene items. So at that point, we opened a clothing closet. And that's been going strong ever since then. It's open 3 days a week after breakfast. And then we just do a lot of outreach services, kind of meeting people where they're at, making sure people, know where other resources are, just connecting with people.
I'm smiling because I am enjoying listening to everything that you're doing, and I love hearing how you pivot and how you stay focused on just on the mission, which is to work with the people and the blessings flow. I just want to interject because I have so many questions, so I know maybe some people watching have questions. Just a reminder, we're streaming House the Houseless Music and Action on YouTube, Facebook, and X. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them throughout the show. Fabian, would you mind dropping our video?
I would not mind at all. Like listening to you guys is like, what? And you do what? And what happens? It's just great. So I'm excited. I'll temper my excitement here, and we're gonna cue. Well, maybe you should introduce it. I know. Maybe you should introduce this next video.
Okay, so I want to talk about Grace at the Green Light and how Sarah allowed me to shoot my music video there pretty early after meeting. And the reason why I wanted to shoot this music video is I during the pandemic, not only working with the unhoused, but writing these songs, I just felt like people needed to know what was happening, but they needed the visual. I wanted them to experience what I was experiencing. And this is not my favorite music video. Every time I watch it, I see an edit that could have been edited better. But I think that everything that I've done since working with the Greater New Orleans Citizens Relief Team and working with the unhoused population has been, it's okay to work in real time and work in front of people and to work together as a collective. And the way that we move forward is by, I might make a mistake, but somebody on my team knows that, you know, it can be done better, and we're trusting in each other. So it's not even about education, it's not about class, but it's about where everybody's at, and everybody's just so invested. So I just want to thank you again for letting us shoot this video, but I wanted to play this video so that you can see the end result and if it brings back any memories. And let's continue this conversation about what you're doing and how you're pivoting and partnering with the community to serve the community. Thank you, Fabian.
The Black Panthers coined the phrase "power to the people" during the freedom movement. Today, right now, in this moment, we are all called to uplift those people that you don't make eye contact with and pass on the streets, the least of ours. We gotta dig deep, and we gotta dig deeper. We gotta scream, we gotta shout, we gotta bang on doors, and we gotta let them know to empower the people. We must give power to the people. Yesterday is far away, my tomorrow's your today. Nothing's what it really seems to be. Walk the road less traveled, then you find yourself in trouble. Some people don't want some people to be free. Spending all our time on the other side. Dance 'cause the whole world's watching you. You are life's pop culture. If you don't, then they don't wanna. Hold up your head, give power to the truth. We give power to the people. We give in power to the people. We push in power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give in that power to the people. We got power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give that power to the people. Ooh, smile like there's no hurt inside. Live with dignity and pride. Loving like your heaven's here on earth. Dusting off your shoulders while lies in domestic corners. Breathe in, breathe out, relax, release the hurt. Some people never lose. They never felt the news of oppression by others who win only when they abuse. How we treat the bottom, where you go is where you come from. Hold up your head, give power to the truth. We give power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give in power to the people. We give in power to the people. We got power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give that power to the people. We give that power to the people. We got that power to the people. Give him that power to the people. Like the king that he is to the people. Make sure you give power to the people. Give your queen power to the people. Your empress power to the people. Say his name to the people. Don't be afraid to the people. Just walk it out to the people. And we got power to the people. 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 To the people. To the people. Give it up to the people. Give it up to the people. To the people. To the people. To the people. To the people.
All right. Sarah, do you remember that day?
I absolutely do.
What was going through your mind? Let's just.
Well, at that point, I didn't know you really, really well yet. So I was like, I don't know who this lady is, but she's doing her thing and giving power to the people. So, yes.
I love checking in with people, when I first meet them, and then when they've had some time to like let me settle in. I'm like a marinade. I come in hot and
That's right.
spicy, because
Yes.
when I find somebody that I really feel, and it's just this visceral feeling, I don't know why, I'm always just inspired and inclined to find out why. So
Yes.
I just wanted to share
Absolutely.
that with you. So you mentioned before the break, you were mentioning partnering with social workers and all of these partners that you have. Like, it's not just a linear process of working with the
Mhm.
houseless, but there's just these multi dimensions. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because for a lot of people that maybe just see houseless people on the street and that's the biggest contact that they have, they think that I'm crazy when I say I'm working with the houseless with pride. And then we get into all these questions, but they want to be on the street and they're on drugs and all of this. So can you share what it means for you
Right.
to partner with the community to serve the community?
Absolutely. And I do think there's so many perceptions about the unhoused, and people really have no idea how much hard work is going on. Behind the scenes and on the ground every day, every morning at 5 a.m. People don't get to see that aspect. So we have so many partners through so many different arenas, but we are part of our local continuum of care. So we do have partnerships with other programs that provide mental health care, healthcare, substance abuse treatment, all of those kinds of things. So, if an unhoused person just walks up to a treatment center, you never know what answer they're going to get. You never know if they're going to be like, come back in 2 or 3 months. Like, you may not be able to get an appointment, those kinds of things. So that's why those partnerships are so critical and so important. So if we find somebody who's in need, we can meet that need right away. A lot of times living on the streets is a life or death situation. And so when they are in those vulnerable, critical moments, we have to step up and say, hey, okay, you're ready. We're going to help you right now. How can we do that? So it's through those kinds of partnerships that we can actually make those needs happen and be met in the moment. We have so many amazing partnerships with just local community members. So a lot of churches, a lot of schools, a lot of even like corporate businesses that they want to do something. They want to give back to the community. They see the need every single day. And they're like, hey, let's do something. Let's be a little part of this. Let's pour a cup of coffee. Let's, feed a bowl of grits. And so we have so many volunteers. We see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers every year. We are a very small and mighty team. We only have 3 full-time staff members. And up till about 2.5 years ago, it was just myself as the only full-time staff member. So we heavily rely on volunteers. And like I said, we have unhoused coming to volunteer with us. We have people that have been formerly unhoused that are coming to volunteer with us alongside these other community members, which helps break down the barriers.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's so powerful that people that have been unhoused and received some benefit from working with you now come back, even when they're in a better place, to spread some of that love. I think it just speaks to how real and what kind of impact you're making. Um, I know a lot of people are interested in volunteering. Is there a way, and I know that you don't want to speak on behalf of the unhoused, but can you sort of line up like what a typical day in the life of an unhoused person looks like?
Mm.
One of the first things that I learned was what a day in the life of someone unhoused looks like. Waking up super early in the morning, showers on one end, that's like a little bit of what I know. But can you maybe share just from your
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah. It's a lot. And the first thing I'll say, and I say this all the time, that the unhoused are the hardest working people that I know because of what they have to do to survive every single day. And that really starts with, not even getting a full night's sleep. Maybe finding a place to rest your head, maybe not, maybe fearing for your safety, having to sleep on top of your one bag that has all your possessions in it, having to sleep with your head laying on your bicycle so it doesn't get stolen from you while you catch a little bit of rest. So really, just struggling to get rest, and then having to get up, and do a full day's work. So our individuals, they do a lot of walking. And those that are unable to walk, we have a lot of disabled, unhoused members. We have right now quite a few amputees living in our encampments, the elderly who can't do the walking to get to resources. So they have to rely on their friends and their community members to bring them food, to bring them items so they can survive. Really, it starts with getting up. We start serving breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. People start getting in line about 5 a.m. Just to, make sure they're in, first and get a full hot breakfast. And then people often ask us why we feed so early in the morning. Why not feed later? It's because our unhoused have a lot of other things they have to do during their day. So after they leave our breakfast, many of them go to a couple of our other resource centers. We have some day shelters, the Rebuild Center and the Community Resource and Referral Center, where they have to then get in another line to get in showers, maybe do laundry that day, but you have to get there before 8 a.m. to get in line to do that. Then finding a place where you can go eat, maybe waiting a couple hours to take a shower before you can find a place to eat lunch. And then much less if you have other resources, say you're trying to find a place to secure where your mail can go or get ID or birth certificates, all of those things. If they're trying to actively seek employment, where do they go to do that? What address can they use? Do they have identification? And then it just starts all over again. So it's a lot of walking, a lot of work. Fortunately, New Orleans is a smaller city, so those that are able to be mobile can get the resources they need. But it also, there's a lot of barriers. If you miss, the place that feeds lunch by 5 minutes, then you're without that meal. And it could have been you were trying to take a bus and the bus ran 5 minutes late, or you were just walking slower, it's rained and you got held up in the rain. And so there's lots of different dynamics that really wear on our unhoused, on their physical bodies, on their mental, their spirits. And so I really do think they work so hard just to survive. And that's something that the general community and general public doesn't really understand. And that, a lot of people judge the unhoused as just being lazy, not wanting to do anything, but really they are having to work to survive much harder than you and I are every day.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think it's really a myth that poor people are lazy. Poor people it takes a lot of work to be poor, so thank you for shedding some light, because I think what you're doing a really good job of is just humanizing the people that we're serving. If they're human, then hopefully we can start to treat them better, right?
Yep.
Do you see a lot of women and children at Grace at the Green Light? When I'm going under the bridge, I don't see too many, and I think that when we're seeing the face of houselessness, I think a lot of the images are usually of men, Black men in particular.
Yep.
But can you please shed a little bit of light on the demographic that you see?
Sure. I have seen a rise in the amount of women, especially in the past year, becoming houseless. We do see a lower number of women and children just because of their vulnerability. Women have to do a lot more to survive and to stay safe on the streets. So they're more willing to, go sleep on the couch with a friend or a family member. They're more willing to go to shelters that may be available, children, we have seen such a huge increase in unhoused families. I would say in the past 6 months, we used to see one or two families every once in a while that would come for breakfast that were actively living on the streets and not in a shelter. But we are seeing multiple families each week now. The the resources available are so limited. We are fortunate to have some shelters that are geared towards families. There's only one that will take intact families, and that will have a male and a female caregiver as well as the children. That one shelter is also the only shelter that will take single fathers or grandparents that are taking care of their kids. And so they stay very full all the time. So it's becoming a challenge to keep families and children safe these days. We're trying to be creative, working with our partner agencies, housing people, especially if there's children on the streets, housing them as quickly as possible, getting them other resources as quickly as possible. So they definitely are, I would say the hidden unhoused, like you said, just because you mainly do see men, and Black men at that, that are on our streets. But that's because our women and children don't feel safe being seen. So that even makes them a greater need. They're more vulnerable for us to reach them where they are to get them into safety quickly.
Wow. Just got chills. Like I just want to tear up when I think about a child having to sleep on the street, and possibly go to school. You know, Sarah, so we're working with a grandmother and her grandson right now. We worked with her about a year ago. She disappeared, but she got housing. And then we happened to see her under the bridge with her grandson. And I said, where you been, Miss Karen? And she said, oh, I've been around. I got my place. And this is my grandson. And I said, we miss working with you. She said, yeah, we want to work with you. That woman for the last 2 months has been working with us, volunteering with her grandson. I'm not going to mention his privacy. And so what we do is my boyfriend and I, we go and pick them both up, bring them back. What we do is we have our unhoused and our at need volunteers. We'll have them bag their groceries first so that we'll make sure that they get what they need, and then we'll start bagging for everyone else. But listen, to see that young man, he's about 11 years old, so focused and so intentional about like serving, and he's like happy to go to the bridge and hand out these groceries. But I always ask him about school, and I'm just speaking out loud with you because this is something that we're going through. He has his uniforms. I'm wondering, how does he study? Sometimes he's in the shelter with his mom. Sometimes he stays with his grandmother. And when you've been in this position with families, what have you done with the children? Like, how have you helped them?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, because you do definitely worry about their vulnerability, and children are so impressionable. And I am very focused on trauma-informed care, and I realize that a lot of our unhoused, the reason that they may be in the situation they're in today is because trauma that they have lived through in their childhood. And so that is a focus of mine, to say, hey, let's meet some needs. Let's, get you some help as quickly. We recently had a family. It was a single mom and a kid, who were on the streets, and she didn't know about any shelters, simply heard about us by word of mouth coming to breakfast. She came a couple mornings. We started talking to her, saying, hey, what's the situation? She was trying to leave an unsafe situation, and simply just wasn't aware of how to work the system. And the system is very hard to work. There's a lot of barriers. So we were able to connect her to one of our family shelters. And I'm so super excited that actually just yesterday I saw on that shelter, they did a social media post stating that mom and the kid had gotten their house. So it's making a difference in, just connecting people to resources. A lot of times when you first become homeless, You have no idea what to do, where to go. And generally, we end up as the first place a lot of people go because they're hungry. They're going to find where to eat first, they're going to meet that need. And so we generally, a lot of times when people are very newly homeless, we may be the first face they see other than another unhoused person. And so it's connecting with them quickly, not letting them downward spiral because of their situation, but trying to get them those resources as quickly as possible.
Well stated. If you're just joining us, we are speaking with Sarah Parks, the Executive Director of Grace at the Green Light, a New Orleans-based 501c3. Fabian, I have so many more questions I want to ask Sarah, but I want to play this video because, this work and me entering into this work is because of my mentor, the late Curtis Muhammad, and he always had these words. And I want to get into some more conversations about the barriers that the houseless face, and I want to get into that after we play this cutaway video.
It's no reason because we have a PhD or a master's or a BA or BS from a university that we have more genius than anybody else. We have to approach each human being with the dignity and the expectation that we can discover genius we never even dreamed of, particularly when you're talking about the pain and suffering of oppression. How can we possibly know from a classroom academic setting can we discover how to eliminate poverty, how to stop the suffering that people have as a result of white supremacy and racism? Somebody got to ask the people who's suffering. I mean, the doctor even do that. What do you hurt?
And I think about that saying every day from Curtis because it's so simple and so basic and so true. And how many doctors don't ask us where we hurt before they start treating us? And so when we start speaking about barriers that the houseless are facing, can you share some of those barriers for everyone watching? Why is it difficult for people to reestablish themselves and reestablish their lives and get the support that they need? So please say.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's so many, a big elephant in the room when you're talking about homeless services is the amount of barriers that our systems for decades and decades have created. Simple things such as having an ID, having a birth certificate, being sober. There are a lot of our shelter systems that are very traditional and have a lot of rules and regulations, which, there need to be some systems in place and regulations, but they end up harming a lot more than helping, I believe. And taking all of our unhoused, many which suffer from trauma, many which suffer from mental illness because of these traumas that they have faced, as well as substance use. It's hard to function in that system. Our shelters, you have to go check in at 4 p.m. every day. So what if you have a job that you're not off by 4 p.m.? If you don't have an ID, you may not be let into that shelter. If you then have more belongings than you can carry in one bag, you can't stay at that shelter. There are some shelters that won't allow their guests to have cell phones, which blows my mind, that they just can't have communication with their families, the support systems that they do have, as well as any employment and job opportunities, just simple communication. And then they have to leave the shelters early in the morning, 6 or 7 a.m., which leaves them on the streets and trying to seek shelter and air conditioning and a place out of the weather all day long until they have to do it all over again. A lot of requirements are made of individuals simply to receive meals. That's one of the reasons why Grace at the Green Light was founded. We didn't want our unhoused to have requirements, have to sit through an hour-long church service just to get a meal. So you and I need to eat every day, without question. So does everybody else. So do our unhoused. Even to receive like housing services and all of those kinds of things, there's a lot of hoops they have to jump through. There's a lot of documentation and paperwork, a lot of visits to doctors, and paperwork from that. All of those kind of things just create more barriers to getting people housed. And it comes from the top down. It comes from our federal systems all the way down, trickles down, just to get people housed, just to get people on, food stamps. And say if somebody may qualify for food stamps, we sit down, we fill out an application online. Well, then they have to have a phone interview to make sure they qualify for the food stamps. Well, what if they don't have a phone yet? Then we have to give them our phone number and make sure they are with us at the exact time that the person from the food stamp office calls for their interview. And if they miss it, they may not schedule another one ever, or it may be months. So there's just so many barriers. Our systems don't make it easy. Like you said, it's hard work being poor, living in poverty. There's a lot of finagling paperwork and just trying to qualify for resources. And that's kind of one of the reasons why Grace at the Green Light offers, resources, no questions asked. While our main goal is the unhoused community and to reach them in the unsheltered community, we don't ask questions. So if you're hungry, if you need a meal, if you were homeless last week and got a house this week, but you still need some breakfast, you can come on in. So yeah, there's a lot of barriers. People don't realize how many barriers and how hard it is to try to find a job if you don't have an address or a phone, or work clothes for that matter.
Exactly. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, capitalism trickles down and poverty trickles up. Because, it's so hard not to stay in the weeds when we're speaking about all these basic needs that everybody, but in particular the houseless need. But I do want to stick to solutions because I know we have a lot of solutions within us. Just in your opinion, with with your work that you're doing with the people, but also with the organizations that are trying to help the people, and you're one of the bridges for that. What do you think is a solution to our global, it's not just a New Orleans thing, but our global housing crisis, our global people crisis, right? Because we are not valuing people. What do you think is the elephant in the room with solutions? What is one solution that we just, as a society, as a government, are not adhering to?
I would say I am a huge fan of advocacy at every single level. If our voices aren't heard, if the unhoused voices aren't heard, nothing is going to change. So I am adamant about meeting our local city council members, saying, hey, here's what's really going on. Why don't you come hang out at breakfast with us? Why don't you talk to some of our people? State level, federal level, getting involved, letting voices be heard, making sure that our unhoused can speak their voices, bringing them along, saying, hey, I know you may not feel comfortable speaking to a city council member, but you can make a difference. And if, the more of us, the more of them that are speaking, sharing the stories, sharing the pitfalls of the systems that we've created, saying, hey, this is not helping, this is hurting. Then little changes can happen. And those little changes, I think, can trickle up a little bit. We've definitely had some success locally. Give a shout out to Council Member Harris. in our district, in our community, has been an amazing listening ear to our unhoused community and to those that are providers for the unhoused community. And she is making the voices known and heard and saying, hey, maybe things should be a little different than we've always been doing them. Maybe let's try something new. So yeah, just not staying quiet, not staying silent, and letting everyone know that we are one community and showing them that, standing side by side, letting our unhoused friends stand in front of us and let them speak, and cheering them on. So
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm totally with you about that. What you said about speaking up, not being silent, it made me think about some of the people that I've reached out to personally, sharing like what work needs to be done, what we're doing with my organization, but just in general, just get involved, like you say. And I've had some people make private donations and tell me I was anonymous. I just didn't want anybody to know. And it's so interesting that this houseless topic, this housing crisis is so taboo. So I'm actually speaking this, but I'm asking you, what do you think is the hardest part about somebody getting involved and making their voices heard about getting involved with the least of us?
yeah, it's breaking down that barrier. You're right. It is. It's not a cute, cuddly, fluffy, charity to get involved with. It is boots on the ground, hard work. We see people that are hurting, that are surviving, that are living in trauma every single day. So yeah, but I really think it's making that first step to breaking down the barriers. If you're not comfortable, excuse me, going out under the bridge by yourself, or even rolling down your window and just saying, hey, giving a bottle of water. If you're not comfortable enough doing that, find an organization in your neighborhood or area. Get involved. They are the ones who see the needs every day. And then, little by little, it kind of breaks down those barriers.
Well said. There's so many ways to get involved, and it's just that first step. And yes, this is not a cute, cuddly charity like Save the Dolphins. Although we do want to save the dolphins, every creature is important, but this definitely is, we're going to get dirty and we're going to be in it. Fabian, would you mind playing another cutaway video? I feel Curtis's spirit in this conversation so much, and I know it's because Curtis is the reason why I went to meet Sarah, and I just feel him over this conversation. So
I love it. Let's cue it up. I love it.
They can't see through the haze, the clouds, like the idea of building a movement from the bottom up don't ring a bell in their head. That they still believe the intelligentsia has the genius to get people justice. But it's the ones in pain that know where they hurt and know what is needed for them to not have pain again. And we don't seek out, we don't harvest the genius of the least of ours. We don't pay them any attention. We just walk by them, give them a quarter and think it's all right. But the idea of organizing the least of ours and moving upwards, I mean, if you go look at the Civil Rights Bill, we passed it on behalf of black folks, but white folks, white women particularly, benefited more than we did because it's a universal issue. So if the people on the bottom raise, everybody raise.
Well, that's powerful.
That's so powerful. I mean, I hear his voice. Curtis and I used to organize during the pandemic. I would say about 15 hours a day. We were working, walking, talking to each other, talking to people on the phone, calling council people, calling different organizations, because that's what it takes. And we're not getting paid for this work. And if you're getting paid for it, I think it's a beautiful thing. But we literally were just people that we had to do something in a time, where we didn't know what was happening. I think about some a lot of the ways that Kurt is organized and how we're using this Ella Baker style of organizing today. You're completely, Sarah, using the Ella Baker style of organizing, which is working from the bottom up, like empowering those that you're working with, that you're serving as you're lifting them up. And this first line about the intelligentsia, you know, and I think that we have this societal view that if academia doesn't tell us that this is the theory, that we don't believe it, and then we don't even get into like the practice of it. So we're so theory oriented. We want everything to look good on paper, but that's not actually what's happening on the ground. And so I just wanted to share that piece with you and get kind of your thoughts on, you know, what you thought about what he's saying.
Wow. This is actually something I've been thinking about lately, because, you know, in the social work world and, you know, in other academia worlds, it's evidence-based practice is such a big thing and a focus when you're in school. You have to do what evidence has taught us to do. But sometimes numbers don't tell the stories. And I really believe, I mean, that quote just, we need to ask them what they need. You know, if it's all these people from the top down figuring out what they think is going to work best and trying it out to see if it works, that's not really solving the problem. It's asking those in need, hey, what do you need? Hey, what do you think we should do? I've got quite a few clients who are brilliant and so passionate. And they tell me, I had a guy tell me the other day, he said, I've got the solution to homelessness. He's like, we've got to listen to the people. And I was like, you're right. You're right. It doesn't need to be so far off and so far from the top down saying this is how we're going to end the housing crisis and this is how we're going to end homelessness. It's not rocket science. Just listen to the people. They know what they need.
They really do. You know, I think about, now you're making me think about how punitive our society has become, or maybe we always were punitive, where it's more about us punishing people for being born in the wrong class or punishing people for making a mistake instead of reformative and support. And I think about like how I've worked with the unhoused and how I work with young people and how I work with my band and how I work with anyone that has a different opinion than me. You know how much time it takes to sit there and explain to a child, listen, you know, you're not supposed to say those curse words. You earn the right to say curse words when you get a job, and you can say as many curse words as you want. But right now, when you know you're living under your mom's roof, you have to be mindful of your language and, you know, ask them what they think. You know how much time that takes? Do you know how much time it would take for every judge to take that time to find out what's going on so that we can put people in the proper spaces, not just jail them, but give them some mental health care? So I think about the work that you and I are both doing and how much time you take, because I've seen you and I see the results of you. Everybody knows about Grace at the Green Light in New Orleans if you're unhoused or working with the unhoused population. So, you know, getting to know the population that we want to serve and uplift, and then, you know, really just take that time to find out exactly what they need. And that's a process. And they're going to fall. They're going to backslide. And we got to be there to pick them up because they won't backslide as far as they were before. But we got to be there to give them that ongoing support, which is, I want to segue back into something you said at the beginning of the conversation that stood out with your partnerships with social services and mental health care services. Can you just like identify like what that process looks maybe for like one of your unhoused partners and why that's important to partner with all of these organizations for the long-term support of one person?
Sure. Yeah, so we have, as I've said before, quite a few partners. I'll give a shout out to one. Metropolitan Human Service District in New Orleans is one of our lead agencies that does mental health care as well as substance abuse treatment. And they come to us. So they have their outreachers come hang out on the sidewalk with our folks. So it's not a hard step. The barriers are gone. They don't have to, walk a mile to an office, maybe get turned away, maybe be able to make an appointment for 2 months later. Excuse me. But they can get those services right then. So Metropolitan is amazing. And they will, if we find a person in need, say a person's ready to go to detox, they come to breakfast and they're like, okay, today's the day. I'm ready to go to detox. We're like, okay, you're ready. We're going to do it right now. And so we've got our folks from Metropolitan. They will call up a van. They will call up a bus and say, okay, we're going to come get you right now. Because, you wait an hour or two, they may not be ready in that moment anymore. So we take the opportunities, make it as easy as we can, lower those barriers, and then help them make those changes. And you know what? I've had folks, we may send them to detox 5 times before it sticks, and that's okay. And that's one of the things I really think is important about the work we do, is saying, hey, I'm human too. Cole's human too. We mess up every day. Nobody's perfect. And for so many of our unhoused, they're ashamed for their imperfections. And just giving a little bit of grace and kindness and helping them move forward when they're ready can make a whole world of difference. There, like I said, there's folks that I've seen go through programs and rehabs and in and out of housing for years and years. And then one day it sticks, because guess what? We didn't give up on them. The world has given up on them, but all it takes is one person to not give up on somebody to really make a difference. So I kind of went off with that, but
you actually answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, what is a tip that you can give for anybody that's looking to volunteer specifically with the houseless? What's the mindset, what to prepare for, what to be willing to give? Like, how can they be present in that space?
Sure. Focus on grace. We never know what we're walking into every day. I never know what I'm going to encounter. I never know what our unhoused community is going through that day. Some days are harder than others. Some days there's a lot more trauma going on, a lot more survival mechanisms going on. So it really is just kind of staying present in that moment, saying, hey, what do you need right this minute? Do you just need a bottle of water? Or do you need to take a walk around the block with me so we can talk and you can just vent? Or we can do some, deep breathing and calming down. You never know. So it's just being open, showing kindness in those vulnerable moments.
Love it. What is the face of your volunteers? So I know that you definitely get a lot of volunteers. I've seen Tulane students volunteer pretty regularly. What are the faces of your volunteers on a random day?
Oh gosh, they're so diverse, which I love. We are one of the few organizations that will allow children to volunteer with their families or with their schools. So we have a lot of school groups. We have a lot of high schoolers. We have a million sororities and fraternities from Tulane and Loyola and Dillard and Xavier. We have retired community members that just come once a week. I've got a retired school teacher who wants to give back. And then we have people who go to work every day who are like, hey, let me give back. This is 1 hour of time I can give, and then I can head on for the rest of my day. So I love that about our volunteers. We're really, really diverse in that.
Yeah, sure. What is your experience seeing the children, particularly? I was going to say youth volunteers, but I think there's something special about like a child that's maybe 14 and under serving. Like, what have you experienced?
Yeah. Our unhoused community love them so dearly. I think for a few different reasons. One, it reminds them of being a child, and maybe some good childhood memories that brings back. Another connection it makes with our unhoused is a lot of them have children themselves or grandchildren that they're not able to see on a daily basis, that maybe they haven't seen in years. Um, and so I hear them say all the time, "Oh, I've got a grandson," or they see somebody and say, "Oh, you remind me of my kid. I haven't seen them in however long." So it's bringing that connection back. Our unhoused get stuck in their community, of being with unhoused adults for the majority of their day. And just to bring, children always bring joy. They always bring just a lightness and new life. Um, and lots of laughter. So I mean, we have children as young as 3 they come and volunteer with us, and I say anybody can do anything. So I can have a 3-year-old pass out a bottle of water, and they love passing out that water so much. And our unhoused love taking water from the child so much. So it's and that helps break down those barriers once again, bridging the gap between the housed and the unhoused, reminding them that they are part of our community, not just the unhoused community, but our greater community.
Absolutely. I was thinking while you were speaking, you make me think about a lot of things. And I'm thinking about one of our unhoused partners, that had a friend that just got into an apartment building. So he was visiting his friend, but then he said that he stopped visiting his friend because his friend would still come under the bridge and was hanging out in his old stomping grounds a lot more than hanging out in his new apartment. So it brings me to the question of what is the transition in your perspective? What is the transition for a houseless person to go from living on the street for a significant amount of time to now being asked to live in their own home? What are some challenges, and how do y'all work with that?
Sure. It's very challenging. And I would say that's one of the top issues within our homeless services system is how do we keep people in housing once they get housed? And I think there's a few reasons for that. One, they do have community, especially if they have been unhoused for a long time. If they are chronically homeless, they have built that community where they are. And some of our systems and regulations don't allow for shared housing. So they just get put in a house by themselves in a neighborhood they might not be comfortable with or even feel safe in. And then just, mentally cannot take it. We have a lot of unhoused that have severe mental illness, a lot of them with paranoia. And just being in a home by themselves can trigger them. And so I think the solution to that is building community once they get, or continuing community once they get in housing. And that is why so many of our folks, after they get housed, come back and volunteer with us, because it's still their community. It's their friends. It's who they've been hanging out with. They still want to see people every day. But really continuing to push supportive services. Our government funds really go towards housing people, and not enough goes towards supporting people once they're housed. So they may have a social worker or somebody that checks on them once a month for 20 minutes. That's not enough for people with severe mental illness. They may not know how to cook. They may not know how to clean their fridge or how to take out the trash. Basic life skills. And so I think it's those continued supportive services that need to be pushed more. And we do have some amazing organizations in New Orleans that really focus on those. There's some groups that have weekly gatherings with their folks that have been housed that I love so much. And they do yoga and go on field trips to the zoo and have picnics and do music therapy every single week and art therapy. And and their people stay housed 100% because they have that supportive environment. So it's not rocket science. It's fighting the systems that have been set in place in making sure we have enough resources to continue to bring support, and just not forgetting about people once they're housed. Not saying, okay, you're housed, your problem is over. It's far from over. There's still a human being with needs, and we all need community.
We sure do. I need community. And I'll
Yep.
say this, I see my therapist once a week. So I can't imagine that the houseless transitioning from living on the street to a home by themselves wouldn't need somebody to speak with. We all do.
Exactly.
You know, this makes me so frustrated, so angry, like to just hear about all the inadequacies and just, it seems just like a very antiquated system that I know that I've been dealing with and that you've been dealing with. Why aren't there more houseless people working within the systems? Like, what do you think? I think, like, have they, well, is there an opportunity? Like, has that opportunity been created? But also, have these organizations sought out some more support, the voices that really matter?
Or, I definitely think this is something that has been improved upon in the past few years that I've seen. And in our systems, it's called people with lived experience. So, and listening to their voices and employing them and that kind of thing. So there's definitely a push for more of that. But yet, you know, a lot of them are burned by the systems. So a lot of them, you know, don't want to help. And even, you know, we have to pay people for their time and their energy for what they're doing. So if you're going to hire somebody with lived experience on your organization staff and pay them $7.25 an hour, which is Louisiana federal minimum wage, but yet you're going to hire, you know, somebody with a bachelor's degree or something and pay them triple that, which is still not enough in my words for housing. But we have to let them know that they are worth their time and their energy and their effort and their voice, and their experiences are valuable to us.
Absolutely. You know, we're running out of time a little bit, but before I get into my theme questions, I just wanted to say, as I'm speaking with you, it's such a wonderful conversation, speaking with someone that's also has the same mindset of doing the work, that we have to get out there, we have to make our voices known, do what we can. And I see the houseless community, but also the housing crisis as a microcosm for like what happens in every part of our world. There are people that are sort of left to their own devices to figure things out. We kind of pick some of our people up and then we say, okay, you should have it by now. So in our society, there's just a space where I feel like we've started thinking more about ourselves and maybe not even about our families, but just individually, like ourselves, and forgetting like how much we contribute to this holistic universe. And so the seeds that we're planting are with people. Like, we're not all farmers and gardeners, but we are all gardeners and farmers when it comes to humanity. And I just don't feel like a lot of people really see it as planting those seeds, which is why I think that people that are doing the work and volunteers that are coming out to volunteer and bringing their children out, that they understand that their voice can make a difference and their one act of kindness can make a difference. And, you know, things spread. I think that negativity spreads, but I think that also positivity spreads. And I watched in the last 3 years, the mainstream go from saying homeless to the unhoused. Like, I watched that happen, starting by what we were doing in New Orleans. And then I watched it go from the unhoused and start to add on the houseless. So, you know, we're ready to say the words and we're ready to, you know, be equitable in our words and theory. I'm hoping that our equity can start to trickle down to the bottom, to the least of us.
I agree. And I think it all starts with just a little bit of kindness and a little bit of grace.
Well said, well said. So I got these two questions because, I'm inspired to do this work because it's not just about power to the people, which is like, for me, the acknowledgement that we all are deserving and we all have the power. But for me, give power to the people is about identifying that we have to equally share the power that we're all entitled to, and we all deserve this dignity and respect. So I want to ask you, how do you give power to the people in your work and in your life, and what does it mean to you?
Mhm. I think it's pretty simple. I think I give power to the people by listening. I think sometimes that's all it takes, listening. Like I said earlier, so many of our unhoused and houseless have been shut down and just discriminated against, and their voice has been diminished. And, we just need to recognize that and listen.
Mhm. So, can you share a particular story where listening as giving power to the people, where this practice has worked?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I will share another example of another unhoused community member who comes back to volunteer regularly. His name is George, and I met him many, many years ago, probably 7-ish years ago under the bridge. Um, and he is from Jamaica, and so he has a very strong accent, and not many people can understand his words. And they think his words are very aggressive in tone, but it's truly just his accent. Because if you actually listen to the words he's saying, there's nothing aggressive about them. It's all in kindness and wanting to help people and give back. And so he has been housed for 5 years now in Central City. He comes back every single morning and makes coffee. He is our barista. He gets there at 4 in the morning before I even get there to make coffee. And he has only taken 1 day off in 5 years. Now, he doesn't get paid for his job. He does it simply because he wants to give back to the community that he was once part of. And that started with us simply listening to his story, listening to his words, not judging him for, how it sounded they were appearing, but just listening and building that community.
Yes, and that story is personally close to me as a Jamaican American. I don't have a typical accent, but I have an accent that comes out, and I can't tell you how many times I'm misunderstood because people don't realize, even when I tell them that I'm Caribbean American, I'm Jamaican American. And so
Wow.
listening really does help. Yeah. Because
Yep.
I can tell you, I have uncles that have that harsh tone. And when you listen to what they're saying, it's the most loving thing ever. It's the best
Yep.
advice you can get
Yep.
past.
It is.
That heartfelt. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing with us today. I'm so inspired by our conversation. I need to call you. Call you, and I need to get back out there early in the morning because I would say like that's one of the places like where my life changed when I was like working directly with all of the people in that environment. It's so loving. It's so kind.
Yep.
It's so welcoming. You don't know who's housed or who's unhoused.
Yep.
And I think that I've also been able to learn so much from you by what you've done, your actions, and in our organization as well. You don't know who's housed or unhoused. You just know that it's a lot of people working together for a good cause.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'll even inspired as well that we can all make a difference.
Thank you. And Sarah, do you want to shout out anybody in New Orleans, any of the organizations? I know you work with a lot, but
okay, yes, I mean I've got a few that I love. The Harry Thompson Center and DePaul USA that are over at the Rebuild Center, and Travelers Aid Society. All do amazing work and are partner organizations of ours with boots on the ground every single day.
Thank you. It takes a village, and you're the proof.
Yeah.
Fabian, do you have any last words? Oh, actually, I wanted to say one more thing because there's so much work that goes into our live stream once a month. And I just wanted to give a special, special thanks to Louis and Fabian for just being the soldiers, because this collective that we're talking about, it's happening right here, like every month when we meet for House the Houseless. So thank y'all.
Well, I want to thank you for just, again, your work. You and Sarah, just sitting here as a fly on the wall, listening to all that goes into the barriers of having to overcome the stigmas of not just what you're doing with the unhoused, but all the stigmas that people have on the outside, the roadblocks, the barriers that you have to climb over just to get the services to the people who desperately need them. It is a thankless job. I have a lot of personal experiences with the work that you guys do. So just from me to you, I just want to thank you for your relentlessness in doing the advocacy work that you've been put on this planet to do. It's really, really important. And I applaud you guys. With that, if you're listening out there in the world wide webs, please, find your way back to Sarah, find your way back to our friend Ms. Cole Williams, and support them in their endeavors, whether it's artistically or on the other side of social justice. It's really important that we continue to bring community together to support the things that mean the most, which is the humankind, people. So with that, thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys. Do we have another date booked on the schedule, Ms. Cole?
Oh, yes, we do. So next House the Houseless Music in Action is during my birthday week. So first Wednesday is on October 4th. My birthday is the first, Libra season. Hey! I'm so excited because we have special guest, fellow rope-a-dope artist, Lisa Marie Simmons. That's just my sister. She's doing great work. She's an incredible artist. And it's just going to be a great conversation about how does this music and action come together for social justice? How does it get from the ground and go to the stage?
You set it up really well. I would be remiss if I didn't give the microphone to Mr. Louis Marks before we closed out, because I see he's on camera. Louis?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Now everyone can hear me. I want to say thanks to people who tune in, and I want you to share this because it's going to live on YouTube and Twitter for a while. Spread the word. It's almost overwhelming for me to think that this is what your day is, Sarah. All day, every week. Your fortitude in dealing with this is just it's humbling for me. I drop a pencil and I complain. So you are doing the good work, and I think that it is so inspiring for people. And what we need to do around the world, and the whole reason we're even in this room with you, is just to spread that and connect people around the world. So if you have stories, if you're watching this, you see this, and you're in another part of the world doing the same kind of work, another part of the country, please connect with us, connect with Sarah, connect with Cole, connect with Rope-a-Dope. I think if we all talk to each other, we will be much stronger. So that's my last word. So thank you all, and of course, the Empress Cole Williams. Thank you for all you do.
Is nothing without people. So it's such a beautiful group to be in. Make sure that you guys support Grace at the Greenlight, graceatthegreenlight.org. They're on Instagram, Facebook, X, also known as Twitter, because y'all are doing some great work, and it's such a pleasure to know you.
And you said 501c3. This is the magic code for all of you that are out there. If your stock portfolio is delivering better than expected results, you can save a good bit of change and send it directly to Grace at the Greenlight. That would be a really good thing. It would make you feel better, I'm sure. All right. I picked a.
Get those deductions up your taxes. Get to a good card.
I got to get that in there. I just want to, I kind of had the feeling this is going to be a heavy conversation. The challenges are constant. Everybody, houseless, housed, doing well, facing challenges. everybody needs a little bit of happiness, and I want everyone to remember that New Orleans can deliver that to us at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
So I chose a track to take us out from a wonderful artist in New Orleans, Sasha Masakowski. And I think just stay tuned and enjoy this. The track is called Struttin' with Some Barbecue, for those of us who are fortunate enough to hold that diamond in our mind and feel that happiness. Here we go.
Strutting with barbecue, swinging with the band, just like the other people do way down in Dixieland.